a bunch of interesting things. If you want to scroll down and look at the, I guess the bio or whatever down there, then you can look at that and see exactly what we're talking about. Go ahead, like, subscribe, share everything from each one of these channels. Again, Horns Down Podcast, Hall of Fame, college football podcast with Jason and the coach, and Sooners 360. So, that being said, gentlemen, how are you guys doing?
Fantastic.
Doing pretty good.
Doing good, doing good. So it's Thursday. We're doing this podcast. Obviously, we're going to kind of talk about, I think, what's really interesting right now. I know Iker and Layman talked about kind of the running back room and stuff like that, but we're going to kind of give you guys our spin on that as well. $500,000, I think that's absolutely, excuse my language, batshit crazy. But nevertheless, enough of me. Jason, Chris Mason, whichever one of you guys want to kind of go talk about that first topic, go ahead and let the people know what you got to say.
Well, we're talking about the running backs that they didn't get. I'll go ahead and pass this along to Chris Mason because I think I know where we're headed with it, but I'll let you start.
Okay, so obviously OU lost out on Jonathan Hatton to Texas A&M, and in theory lost out on Caden Jones to OSU within the last 10 days. So from a recruiting perspective, that knocks off the two most named running backs connected with OU for the 2026 class. In fact, it basically wipes out the 2026 running back group, high school-wise, in terms of feature backs. The only guy really left is Ryland Morris from Texas, who's sort of an all-purpose back. He's committed to Baylor. And Jalen Hill from Mississippi, who's a big power back, but he's also committed to Mississippi State, at least currently he is. So there's no other big feature name running backs that are looking at OU. Javian Osborne, maybe a year ago was looking at OU. I think that's a Michigan or Notre Dame win, maybe Ohio State. I think he's looking to leave the state. There's another big-time running back in the state of Texas, KJ Edwards. He doesn't appear to be looking at OU at all. OU hasn't been heavily recruiting him. So from a certain perspective, if you were like me and you follow OU's high school football recruiting pretty heavily, after losing Hatton, you thought, well, maybe they would be able to focus on Caden Jones, OU legacy. But it looks like OU moved on from Caden Jones about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, maybe even a little earlier. So it's kind of interesting. You get Gabe and Teddy on their podcast saying that they don't feel like there's a running back on campus. And then you have OU walking away from their two running backs. The Hatton situation, I think, just to give a little clarity, DeMarco won that recruiting from a regular recruiting standpoint. Okay, he got OU back involved. He was prepared. I think Hatton was prepared to verbal back to OU, and A&M just basically came over the top with basically whatever OU was willing to pay Hatton. They went 2 to 3x times whatever OU was willing to do. And again, was something we're getting deeper into, whether it's Nagy alone making that decision or Nagy advising Brent. OU just didn't match the NIL offer. They stood pat and lost Hatton, who I think he's a top 100 back. I think he's I don't know. We listened to Gabe and Teddy, their view on what a feature back is, or a difference making running back. It was kind of interesting from their perspective. But OU obviously feels like Hatton, they have a value number for Hatton, and they're going to stick with that. And whether that's coming from Nagy in conjunction with his new, assistant GM and Brent and DeMarco, either way, OU felt like they didn't want to match. And it doesn't sound like OU felt like the number on Caden Jones was also getting away from whatever number they were willing to go with Caden Jones. Yep. That first Kansas, then Vanderbilt, then Ohio, then Oklahoma State sort of went with a number, and OU's like, yeah, we're not willing to compete at that number. So high school recruiting is back to basically zero, and I'm starting to wonder if OU will even sign a feature back for 2026, which is interesting based upon the Scoop podcast is I just listened to that a little bit earlier, and and George Stoya, who seems pretty connected to the OU program in terms of things portal wise, was talking about OU looking for a portal running back. So I just think it's an interesting. This also fits in with something, a bigger topic for us to kind of, dwell and chew on today is, I've heard from some different sources that, that Nagy and coordinating with Brent and obviously the coaches, that we may not see top 10. I think the logical consequence is that Nagy he's just not going to pay any attention to what's going on with the recruiting services. So we may see OU sign the guys Nagy wants from his perspective, and the recruiting services could have very different opinions to the point where, maybe we're seeing the end of top 10 kind of recruiting classes, unless the recruiting services
Whoa. Hold on. You're saying
obviously stop unless the recruiting services obviously look at what Nagy's doing and decide to just bump up the kids that OU's offering.
Yeah, and that's where, I mean, if we're going to really sit here and act like what Jim Nagy is and doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things of the recruiting services, if that's what we're going to do, I think that everybody has fallen off the damn rails, because the recruiting services, they need to adjust anyway. They've been needing to adjust anyway for a while now. It's not a complete science. I talk about this all the time. We've been talking about this.
Yeah, we have been.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of guys out there. Look, do you want to get a guy like Jones because of him being a legacy guy? Sure, if you can, and it's within your budget. But we are now in a time where they are going to a flat-out NFL model, which means that you have values placed on every position. The number one position in college football is not running back. Especially if you're wanting to win national championships, you need to make sure that the best places that you load up on are in the trenches. Yes, skill guys. If you look at the NFL model, though, they value receivers by like twice as much as they value running backs. If you look at what the numbers are and what they pay salary-wise to those guys, it's not even close. So they're after the guys that they believe are going to help them win national championships, and we know as well as anybody that that's in the trenches. That's on defense. That's going to be at your quarterback position and at running back and at receiver. But the running backs that you have in the room, yeah, you've got a bunch of guys that you don't have a ton of experience. The experience that you have had some injuries, but the guys that you have in the room this year right now are absolutely worthy of, having an opportunity to go ahead and get it done. Whoever it is that in this recruiting class that we get isn't going to come onto this team until 2026 anyway. But I would tell you that if you missed on Hatton and you missed on this guy and that guy and this guy and that guy, what about that guy J.J. Hill out of Mississippi that we know is a X-Rob type of guy, maybe even a little bit more speed, right? Same size, big guy. There's guys out there that know they may not be 4 or 5 stars according to On3 or 247. That doesn't mean they're not worthy of playing on a team like Oklahoma.
But I think one thing, if I may just jump in here, I think one thing to say is that if there's any staff that this will gel quickly with, it would be this staff here. Because I think these staffs are – I think the staff that we have, granted, maybe not the result that we always want, but they get the most out of these guys, whether it's portal, whether it's, guys that they're trying to usher into the program.
That's what I was saying. I think that they already identified the guys they think are good, not just 247 or On3 likes.
No, exactly. And I mean, that's the thing. They do evaluations, year out. But now I think it makes it easier for them to pinpoint guys. And the biggest thing is that you got to remember the type of, I always give them a shout out, but Ty Hayes, shout out to our friend Ty Hayes, Around the Table Sports. But what, Ty would always say in his early videos and when he would do videos with all of us is, hey, I love Venables as a recruiter. I love Bates as a recruiter because they don't have to get a guy that's just a finished product from high school at that D-line position, at that DN position, at different positions on that defense. They go out there and they get freaks. They go out there and get freak athletes, and they teach them basically how to play the college game, how to maneuver around in this defense and go do what they do. So, I mean, I think that the development is there. We just have to see it. I think a lot of OU fans are just like, hey, we need to see it all come together, right? That's the reason why this season is really important. But yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to just jump in and say I didn't watch that episode, but I was surprised to hear that they would say that there's not a guy in the running back room it's a featured back in college football. To me, it makes almost no sense that they would have said that. I don't understand that.
It was a weird episode because basically they sort of constructed a straw man. Basically, they started by saying, OU needs to get a difference maker in the portal at running back. That's our running back room review. And then they talked about that for 20 minutes, and they finally talked about the running backs in the room. And kind of, well, it's like, well, why are you even bothering talking about them? You already told us in the first. You know what I'm saying? It's like you say, well, these guys suck. And then you get around and say, well, why do they suck? And you say, well, they suck because I said they suck. It was weird, but I do.
I'm usually all the way in with those two guys, and I can't even imagine that that's the conversation that they had.
Well, it was. I mean, it basically, cascaded across the internet. Everybody pretty much in different pods talked about it. So it's interesting. So one of the comments they made, which aligns with maybe the running back recruiting situation, is they felt like OU needed to go get a difference-making running back in the spring portal. And if you use that money in the spring portal, then maybe you don't have that money for the 2026 class, so to speak, although I don't really know how they do that budget and how they budget the two different areas and all that. But I was just a little taken back by them feeling like that running back was the number one spring portal need. And they said that. So, and obviously, you see Tristan, Tristan follows up with that from our chat. So it was interesting that comment was made, and then in the last 10 days, obviously OU walked away from one running back several weeks ago and was not willing to compete in NIL for another high school running back. So is it that the three young running backs, Nagy looks at them and says, Blaylock, Robinson, and Tatum, those are my guys. Those guys will be feature backs coming up. But for this year that's so tight with a bad schedule and needing wins, I don't think that Barnes or Sawchuk are.
Now that I would agree with. That I can agree with.
And I need to go get. We need to go get an elite guy, and I think we have to. Part of my problem is, well, who's a difference maker at running back? And not to disagree with Gabe and Teddy too much, but they were rattling off some players, and I'm like, well, that guy's not a difference. They were saying some running backs in the SEC, like, well, Bama has a difference maker at running back. I'm like, well, I didn't see one last year.
Wait, who was he? I didn't see him.
Yeah, Missouri didn't have one last year.
He played quarterback for him. I think that's who they.
Yeah, he was exactly. Caden Durham was okay at LSU, but he wasn't like a 1,500 young guy. So it was a little interesting, but I'm also wondering, what do you define as a difference maker from the portal if we were even going to even grab a guy? And they said someone who had like 1,200, 1,300 yards rushing last year, and I'm like, and that guy's just going to be in the portal for OU to grab, and how much is that going to cost?
Are there any of those guys out there? I don't even know who those do. Who would that guy be?
Who's the best returning running back in college football?
I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know any of those guys. I'm just really thinking. I'm not thinking of any guys that had 1,200 or 1,300 yards that are even back.
I mean, Henderson and Judkins went pro, right?
Yeah.
Yep. So did the guy.
Maybe it's
the guy from Boise. I mean, everybody that really had a huge
Rocket Sanders. Rocket Sanders is gone, right?
He gone.
And maybe it's the guys at Penn State, the duo who I think returned.
They're both coming back. Yeah,
and they're both good. They're good running backs. So I don't know that I would ever trade one of them for Joe Mixon. If we're going to use a barometer. So go ahead, okay.
I think you have guys here. I think the problem is it's just that it's just so much unknown. But the biggest thing is this right here, and this could be the deciding factor. What is the conversation like between Arbuckle and Nagy as far as, hey, I can make it work with this guy, I can make it work with that guy. I mean, if we just run down the list, I think X right now, to me, I think X is probably your most complete runner as far as being able to. The vision is there, the confidence, the vision is there, the footwork, all the rest of that stuff, the speed, the burst, the confidence that's there. Probably your most complete back right now. I think behind him, sorry people, but I'm putting Tatum. I saw some things from Tatum last year. I'm like, he flashes off the screen. It's just the fact that he can't hold on to the damn.
He's got to hold on to the football. We all know that that's a fumble thing, but that's that and the fact that DeMarco wasn't going to, until he was the best blocker in the world, he didn't appear to want to play him. But yet, I mean, I go back to the Navy game and that last play for the two. I mean, I don't know why you had Sawchuk in there instead of Xavier Robinson.
No, that too. But speaking of that, then I mean, honestly, it's kind of a toss-up who you put next as far as Sawchuk or Barnes, because we all know Barnes is a hard runner. Barnes is going to be able to do good things. I still question the vision. I still question, is he I mean, what is he doing out there? Because sometimes he's just running to the back of blockers. He's just running into basically the tackle area. But then you look
now before he got hurt, I mean, with the old, I mean, it's like we had flashes of Ole Miss.
That's another issue.
And that's the other issue is, so I think you're right on Barnes. I mean, I think he was showing more wiggle and more vision in the Ole Miss game and the main game, which I'm not really sure how much you put on into that, but he was showing more stuff, regardless of who he was playing, before he got hurt at the end of last year than he had previously. So I was like, okay, maybe some things are starting to click, but then again, he got hurt again, and that's now 2 years in a row where he's just not available.
Yeah, but the same, and that's a perfect segue into the next running back, Sawchuk. To me, this offense probably fits Sawchuk really well just because of the intangibles that he has. But like I've said again and again and again and again, and I'll say it now, somebody's got to tell him, you're not Kennedy Brooks. You're Gavin Sawchuk. Hit the hole. Let's go. But hell, even Kennedy Brooks in his year with Kyler, that's all that he did. That was the biggest difference between him and Trey Sermon. Trey Sermon liked to dance back there in the backfield. He'll see the hole and he's gone. So, I mean, it's just one of those things where you're like, hey, I get that you want to be patient and everything, but you got to figure it out, which I think that your offensive line is going to be better than last year, regardless of what the line looks like this year. And then, obviously, you got Torrey Blaylock, who is kind of maybe the unknown, but he's
holding. I think Jason is restating the Bills Parcells maxim: the best ability is availability.
Yeah.
Got Ryman Lemmy.
Jeremiah Love.
He said Jeremiah.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty sure
okay,
he.
Right,
I agree. Yeah.
Marion Hampton at North Carolina.
Yeah, he's gone. He's in the pros. I'm pretty sure he's in the pros. Maybe I'm right. Maybe I'm confusing him with the Tennessee guy. But Bill Belichick's going to lose a running back? Give me a break. Belichick's going to run the ball left and right if that guy is that good. So, I think you're right, K. Chris, that, I think the two veteran backs have showed you enough that you can't rely on them.
Yeah.
I think X-Rob has shown, but again, we haven't heard anything about the running backs really this spring, have we? From all the flashes that we're hearing Giovanni Gibson. We're hearing a lot about the D-line. We're hearing about wide receivers and Mateer, but we're not hearing.
Right, because they didn't do anything. I think it might be part of that. Might be the fact that you didn't have a quarterback that would throw the ball down the field. You didn't have receivers available. Availability. There's that word again. So I think that could be the reason why you're hearing a lot of that stuff, and maybe the 15 minutes that the media is getting, they're not running the ball a whole lot so far. I don't know.
Yeah, but we're not hearing anything behind. They are supposed to have a scrimmage coming up, so maybe we'll hear something more about a running back so far. But it's been a little quiet about the running back room, and it's dead quiet about the tight end room as well, which is not a shock there. So I just think we're seeing potentially three Nagy footprints already, right? I'm not spending a lot for a running back out of high school, and I'm evaluating the running back room, and I don't like what I see in the upperclassmen. And maybe I'm going to redirect funds from the high school class to the portal class to see if I can, this may be where we see Nagy's influence play a bigger role in the portal than we've anticipated, right? Nagy, maybe this is a situation where Nagy's perhaps going to be able to reach out to his sources and say, we're looking for a running back if the right running back is out there. And we've got some money for somebody. So if somebody's, so it may be that Nagy is playing like 3D chess in the portal, whereas previously, OU was, kind of waiting to see who would be in the portal. I'm just wondering if Nagy is going to sort of reverse motivate folks to be in the portal, and we're going to be like, oh, wow, that guy's in the portal, and we're already engaged with him. Wow, that's interesting. No, it's not. Nagy told a number of agents he's looking for a running back, and that got back to their clients. So, I think Franklin. I think he just needs a place, go somewhere he's going to play. So, I just don't think that's at OU. I don't think he's certainly not the difference-making running back. I think that folks want OU to have, or they think OU needs to have this fall. So I think it's going to be an interesting story to track. I think we talked 2 weeks ago, and we were talking cornerback, safety. What I'm hearing, I don't think wide receivers a need in the portal, but I would certainly throw that to you guys to debate. But I hadn't. I mean, I was pretty sure that if you gave me a set of money, I would
take a corner with some experience if he was available, but
with a little height, someone to offset to Eli Bowen's lack of verticality.
Corner, linebacker, possibly.
Yep. I could give a crap about running back right now. I'm going to tell you, I just don't see that this is.
Well, I'm hearing really good. I mean, James Nesta and Tyler Hamer apparently having good springs, really good springs. So your depth at linebacker is a little bit more than you thought.
So yeah. let me go ahead and open this one up right here. This can of worms. Shout out to Topher. Shout out to all the guys, especially the Discord guys. But he said I would still take one more wide receiver. So. Got to bring up this point. So me and my uncle been talking about this for the last couple of weeks. Every Saturday is what he starts every OU conversation with. He's like, I would still take one more wide receiver. Why? Because I think we all still feel confident about what we got in Burks. I think we're starting to feel more and more confident about Javonte Gibson maybe being that guy. Maybe the numbers actually will match the production that he could do here, and it will translate to at this level. I think Satania, I think people are excited about him. You hear some things about Keontez Lewis, but then, Elijah Thomas. You got guys on campus, stuff like that.
And Kearney and Josiah Martin.
I was going to say, Kearney's been flashing a lot from what I understand.
But the problem with that is that you can't I'm sorry, but can you trust that Jaden Gibson is going to be 80% to 100. That's the max. Is he going
to carry on
what he was before the injury?
Yeah, but you have Ivan Carry-On, who didn't drop a freaking football that we saw last year whenever they had him in.
If you could go and get you another 1,000-yard wide receiver or get another, I don't know.
We're talking.
We're throwing on each play.
I just throwing it out there. I need one more wide receiver, guys.
How many footballs are they going to use?
You said what?
How many footballs are they going to throw on each play?
I'm not
3. Three.
Jeez.
It's a new offense. Arbuckle is going to have 3 footballs in play at the same
That's
time.
awesome, man. We're gonna change the game now, I guess. Holy shit.
The point of it is that we could talk about the depth, right? But when it comes to our big four, because what you should have is your big four should be Javonte Gibson, Satania, Burks, and Jaden Gibson. You need insurance for Jaden Gibson. It's almost the same as going out there getting another.
I think that Kearney is the guy there instead of Gibson at the moment because
Well,
of the fact.
and you're going to block Elijah Thomas's death, but
And I was fixing to say you got Elijah Thomas, and I've heard a lot of good stuff about Manny Choice too. I don't want to mess with their development.
Okay, well, let's spin this around with you, K. Chris. So you've got $400K in the portal for an elite skill position player. Are you taking a running back, a wide receiver, or a tight end?
he just threw tight end in there, Jason. He just threw tight end in there.
Well done, well played there, sir.
Well, and Nagy, through the power of his contacts with agents, has lined up a guy that we look at and go, ooh, okay, we take that. Yeah, okay, I can see spending money on that. So I'm giving you that. You've got 3 guys of relatively equal ability, and would be basically instant. Would be at tight end they'd be starting. At running back they would be forcing their way to being number 1, and at wide receiver they'd be one of our top 3 guys. All right, from the look of them. Which guy? And you can only spend the money in one place, though. Nagy's saying, I got salary cap money for you. I got 3 guys in the portal that we could spend it on, but we could only spend the money on one. Which position are you going with? As what we know right now with the roster as it currently stands, not
I'll be honest
4 months from now, right now.
I'll be honest with you. I probably would go running back. And that's simply because I think I'm sorry. Look, I would probably
got to be shitting me, man.
I would go running back. If you give me those terms, that situation, I go running back. Why? Just because I have a little bit of faith, a little bit of confidence that, hey, I've seen him do more with less. And that's not a slight at the Washington State guys. That's just saying, hey, I've seen you go out there and do it with those guys and have a high production, high chip. Running back, I want to make sure that you're fine because I want a running back that's like, I'm not sitting there saying that we need a damn Bijan Robinson or something like that, but we need somebody that can help the offensive line as well. I'm just saying, like, we need somebody who could try.
So X-Rob didn't show that he could do that against Alabama last year?
You said what?
X-Rob didn't show you that he's that guy against Alabama?
I'm not saying that he didn't, but I feel like
what are we talking about then? What are we talking about?
Look, Jason, I think that you're going to lose one of these running backs as well. I think you're probably going to lose to Sasha. That's just my opinion.
That's good. Probably that's a good thing because now we're seemingly wanting to give a bunch of time to guys that haven't shown up in the past. And so to me, the guys that you have in there, the young guys, including Torrey Blaylock, need to be the dudes you need to find out whether or not they're it or not. I could give a crap about the running back position. I'm telling you, that's crazy. X-Rob did prove that he's that guy, and they still didn't give him the damn football against LSU.
Well,
wasted his damn red shirt.
Well, I don't know. We wasted it. I mean, if he's as good as we think he's going to be,
well, yeah,
I mean, he's not going to be around. He's not going to be around as a 5th-year senior anyway.
Yeah, but if K. Chris is wanting to go get another one out of the damn portal, then it is gonna be wasted because they're not gonna run him.
Look, if you get rid
all
of
right, so okay, all right, roll, okay. So K. Chris made his choice. You didn't love his choice, but Jason, I now spin the wheel to you. Where are you spending your NIL money? You are Jim Nagy. You have arranged 3 guys of equivalent difference-making impact based upon who they are. Which position are you spending the money on?
It would probably be the something at the cornerback position. That'd be the first.
No, I don't think it's offense. Cornerbacks in the parking lot.
Oh yeah, tight end, no doubt. It's tight end. It's not even a question.
So you think you're willing to ride and die on the young three of Rob, Tatum, and Blaylock.
Absolutely. Oh, dude, come on, man. Of course.
Okay. I mean, you watch Blaylock at 202 pounds working out with his dad, who knows something about the running back position. Jimmy Satterfield says center. Well, we're talking skill guys right now. I think we're not blowing $400K on a backup center. We're just not. Because also, with how kids are playing, how good some kids are looking, I think Nwewu to center is something that we'll probably see. Maybe he moves to center, and you free up space for Ozada and EPL to be your guards, and you have Nwewu as your backup center. But I know that we need a backup center is something that's needed because I don't think Iasosa or Hollenbeck are ready. But skill-wise, we've got one running back, one tight end, and I think based upon the fact that the only name we're hearing anything out of is Jaron Kanek, who's a 230-pound linebacker in the tight end room, I gotta agree with Jason and say I think wide receiver is in good shape. I think the three of the four transfers we've heard a lot about, Satenia and Gibson, we're hearing a lot about. Kearney's playing well. Burks is almost like Burks is hurt, and then you watch Burks working out with Mateer and Gibson, and he didn't look hurt at all. Did he?
Want him getting hit is what it is. They don't want him getting hit.
Yeah. So to me, I think the Burks injury worries are a little overblown. But so I'm going to ride with the wide receiver group that I see. But it's just the tight end group. I think if again. Mike May's concern is though that I'm setting up a false argument that you're going to find that there'll be a wide receiver or a running back that could really help in the portal. I just don't know how Nagy finds a tight end. I just don't. I think it's a much smaller pool of skill guys, and finding a tight end I think is going to be extremely difficult, especially with Joe John Finley's development history hanging around. Around like an ant
in the comments right there. Is it
hanging around like an anchor
problem, or is it a Joe John Finley problem?
We don't have enough. Whereas the DeMarco argument, at least DeMarco had 3 years of productive running backs with Stevenson, Brooks, and is it Eric Clay? Is that right? No, is that right?
Eric Gray.
Eric Gray. Sorry. At least DeMarco has those three guys in the bank. He's in terms of credit. 23 was obviously kind of a mess because of injuries, and 24 was I'm giving DeMarco and Emmett Jones and Bill kind of mulligans. Soon the Cowboys has an interesting idea. So you I don't know the Decorians. I don't think he's that good, but
I don't know.
I prefer to tamper with a guy who's 6'3", 215 pounds, and plays in Columbus. And Columbus, he's in Columbus.
We're gonna go that route.
Yeah. So I do think I set up a kind of a false argument for us because I do think we'll see. There'll be guys at running back. Maybe there'll be definitely guys at wide receiver because there's just so much wide receiver talent. But at tight end, I'm just not sure. I'm just not sure how. I'd love that Nagy's got like 4 tight ends in his book that he was tracking for last year, for next year's draft, that are at some small school that he can get some agents on the line and get some guys in the portal. And maybe that's the first example of the way Nagy will pay off in a way we've never thought. But I think, if you take tight end off the board and you just make it a running back wide receiver argument, I think I probably agree with Kay Chris and would go if I'm limiting the argument, forcing you guys to choose between those two positions, which is also not really fair. I think if we're talking about running back
in those two positions, would it be running back or receiver? I guess 6 in one and half a dozen in the other. I think they're fine at receiver. I think they're fine at running back. But yeah, okay. If we're gonna play the hypotheticals and that's what we're gonna do, it's either one or the other. Then yes, go with running back.
That would be what you would do. Yes. If I'm constructing,
it's not receiver for me. It's not receiver for me.
I don't think so either because and maybe I trust Emmett Jones more than DeMarco at this point as a college coach. I'm we've gone back and forth with me saying I think DeMarco belongs in the pros. That's my most recent opinion, but I think it's interesting that we may be seeing Nagy on this side. This and as I said with recruiting, again we may see OU. I think the running back situation I use this really poor example that Nagy is he's a little bit like, hey, we're rushing down to the altar with these guys, and I really haven't had a chance to evaluate the whole running back group. Maybe I take a pass on the running back group for 26 until my full scouting staff is in place for 27. Because, obviously Jason talked to Stevens kid from Mississippi, right? That you talked to last week?
Yeah. Yes.
And there's obviously other running backs in play.
Yes.
Michael Stevens. So I just wonder if part of what we're seeing is Nagy basically at running back saying, I'm not in a rush to go to the altar with any of these guys. I'd rather spend the money on a proven commodity that I've got. I've got 4 guys I know that I can convince to get in the portal already, because I know these are guys I were planning to invite to the Senior Bowl next year. And then Nagy's saying, I'd like to push off the running back value quotient until 2027 when my full staff is in place to scout, evaluate, and provide the proper opinions to whoever is the running back coach.
Let me jump in here, guys. Let's go back through some of the comments. Topher B said if it's a difference maker, he would want a tight end. Ung said tight end. Let's see. Stop that. Stop that said tight end. Ung said tight end. Let's see. Looks like a lot of people are saying tight end just in that situation. Looks like
you're limiting us to 1 of 3 skill positions,
Yeah. So the Cowboys.
And I'm not only doing that because of the context of losing the recruits, right? And the depth we have, and like I said, I was expecting to hear a running back review from Gabe and Teddy, and the first comment they make, right out the gate, we need a different running back. It's like, okay, can't you guys at least talk about the guys a little bit? And they're like, nope. And they, where they're hearing that from. They're the only guys who do get a behind the curtain view at practice, right? We know that they get to watch actual practice, not just the media session. At least that's been my estimation. So I think defensively is a different discussion. I think we know what we're hearing. We talk about cornerback, and then a lot of the player interviews to this week, everyone's talking up Cortland Guillory left and right. And Gentry Williams seems to be relatively confident in his ability to play. So does that, if you come out of spring and a couple of the freshmen have stood out and, you've got more depth at Cheetah, maybe you can play Dolby, some at safety, maybe some at nickel corner. I don't know. I thought cornerback was the number 1 need. Linebacker, I just don't know that we find a linebacker who's good enough to be in our top 3. And I think any linebacker who is good enough to be in our top 3 is probably going to be promised a starting spot somewhere else and won't be interested in fighting Kobe, Samo, and Lewis and Daniels for starting time. So that's my question at linebacker. I like the idea of depth, but I just wonder if we can find a guy that actually can get in the top 4, that's, can break into our top 4, that's willing to be in a top 4 rather than an auto starting job somewhere else. But yeah, I think overall, if we talk defensively, I think it's a different argument. But I was just stunned that OU walked away from both of the running backs that they had been involved in, one for cost and one perhaps for talent and cost. It's DeMarco's basically just lost a year and a half of running back recruiting.
Yeah. But it's one of those things where Would you have wanted to get the Hatton kid? Yeah, but that I mean, look, people.
We're still talking about 2026 season. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? But that on
Right.
that running back position, I don't even know. I mean, to me, I just don't see if we're gonna go to this model of this is what we're gonna do, then you have to go ahead and go with it and relax about it a little bit. I think that they're gonna get the guys that I think like what you opened up with is that they're gonna go get guys that they identify as worth the money and the investment that they're gonna have to put in them because this is an NFL model now, and you have a real NFL guy in the house and running the show on that end of it. I think that it works very well with this program because we've got guys that don't really give a shit about what 247 and On Three and Rivals think about who's got the most stars. I don't think that that's one of the things that moves them that much.
Yeah, no, I agree with you completely. I'm just saying that it will be interesting to see if once we, the next recruiting class, the 2027 class, I'm not sure how much impact Nagy can have on who OU signs this year. Maybe he will have, or maybe I'll be surprised by the time December rolls around and we'll see what's actually in the class. But I do think the comment made to me was like, just recruiting rankings are going to, less and less. So, if OU's not got a top 10 class, don't freak out. But we'll have the guys that Nagy exactly wants in the class in coordination with Brent Venables. And and obviously, some of those guys, back in the day, Bob made, a living off 3 stars becoming, All-Americans and stuff like that, all the way back to Derek Strait and Jeremy Beal and Teddy Lehman, and to use another name, who wasn't wasn't much of a name of anything.
Sure was.
So it'll be interesting to see if when OU goes down this path, do the recruiting services start to, Nagy offered this guy, we need to pump up his rankings. So we'll see. We'll see if there's going to be 12 months down the line, we have a different effect going on. Because I do think Todd Bates already does some of this, right? And I think Chavis, who, Bates mentors to a heavy degree, has already done this, right? Bates switched to this guy, Branch, from Pennsylvania at defensive tackle, and then he switched to the big kid from Florida. I believe his name's Brian Davis, if I'm remembering right. So, we saw some switch there. We saw, Chavis focus on Jake Krull and KJ Ford, and not get bogged down with any other defensive ends and just make, focused on those guys. So, the linebacker recruiting is definitely picking up. Dryling's doing a good job there. You can tell that the guys visiting OU and OU making offers, that stuff is starting to look a lot better than the alley stuff that we were dealing with last year. So I think you're right, Jason. I don't think the staff, Bill Biedenbauer's not going to give a flying, blank about what anybody thinks about offensive line.
Yeah, no matter what you're saying about Ryan Foji right now, he was ranked in the 500s whenever he committed.
Well, when he was offered, Bill saw him when he was in the offered. He was like he was a nobody,
right?
And now I could think he might be the second best freshman that he's seen in forever. And of course, he's only second best because Fasusi's the best looking freshman he's seen since Trent Williams kind of days, that kind of time frame. But I think it's interesting that I just wanted to bring that as a comment because fans, we're ranked 10th on 3 in the SEC right now, and some of our fan base is probably freaking out about that in terms of who's our next verbal commitment, when are we getting another verbal commitment, and it's probably going to be a hint to everyone. It's probably Mason James. That's the next guy, the wide receiver from Norman North, who's basically a Sterling Shepard, Ryan Broyles clone type guy. So the odds of him not being successful in Norman are relatively low. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if Nagy, if Nagy breaks his quarterback tie or is pushing one guy over the other guy. So, I thought we might take a little while to see Nagy's influence, but I think, I think it showed up at running back recruiting already. I think he's probably going to be the tiebreaker at quarterback recruiting if they need to break a tie, if they don't just sort of, ghost one of these kids and move on. But I didn't anticipate it being this quick and this apparent. I thought that the 26 class would kind of move along and we might see it in 27. But I think it's definitely impacting what's going on.
He might as well get his ass to work when we're paying him now.
Well, yeah. I think a lot of the, obviously the schedule is still very daunting, and everyone, I think, and that was a little bit of what Gabe and Teddy was trying to get through, was that they wanted a proven difference maker at running back to handle this upcoming schedule.
Well, a quick question for you. I'm gonna ask Jason's question because he added as one of our topics tonight. Does this NFL model, does it clash with what college football currently is right now?
It clashes with what college football was.
Oh, go ahead.
That's what I would think. It clashes with what football was, and I think that, Chris Mason kind of hit the nail on the head when he opened with this, talking about that we're getting away from caring about what 247 on threes and Rivals thinks about whether they're worthy, if they've all been to all these camps and they're all 5s and 4s and all that stuff. They all have to have been to their camps. The truth is, there's a lot of guys out there that nobody knows anything about, like Giovanni Gibson, that all of a sudden here he is. And you can tell that, the speed, the ability to get in and out of routes that you've seen from him, whether it was, on his film or not, all that stuff is going to translate to any league, no matter what. When you're 6'2", almost 6'3", running a 4.4, it's probably going to translate when you can get in and out of your routes the way that they do. So, look, that's the way I kind of look at it. Is you're going to have to start embracing the fact that we're going to a model where it's about what your coaches think, what your scouts, which, he's going to have a scouting department. Apparently, you got to go out there and get the guys that you identify as the right dudes. I remember talking or watching, I think it was the Pivot podcast, and they were talking to Nick Saban. And what did he say? He was talking about Bill Belichick, saying, we identify guys based on his method. It was this height, this weight, this kind of speed. That's who we want on our football teams. And we did it the entire time at Alabama. Now, it just so happened that, that all those guys were 4s and 5s and blah, 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 blah. But no matter what, they had look how many of those guys you could change the name all day long, but their guys were always their guys. They were always the same type of dude that did very well playing at Alabama. You're going to see that here too. I just think that it's already been headed in that direction, but I don't think that it's a change from what it's. I think it's what it was, not what it. It's a difference in what it used to be.
Yeah, the one thing I do wonder is that will this sort of, and I'm not sure it is this way. We haven't seen it blend with Brent yet, but is this sort of coldly analytical model going to hamper some of the more, for lack of a better term, warm and fuzzy family soul mission type elements that Brent has? So will it hurt that? I don't think we know. I don't.
But I think that also is part
data.
of the NFL model too, though, is to get guys that fit with your program and they're not troublemakers and they fit with what you want to do.
Yeah, so I think it could hurt. So I think I think it's going to hurt OU fans who only look at recruiting sites' opinions of how OU's doing in recruiting. That's what I think is going to get hurt, is that the recruiting sites' opinions of how OU's recruiting is going to fall, and then it may jump up when the recruiting sites take a look at the guys we have in their senior year film and stuff. It's very clear, based upon the feedback that that's around the internet, that Fasusi's, not only was Fasusi the best guy coming at Vasusi was the best offensive tackle last year coming out of high school, right? And different services had Haywood ranked ahead of him, Babalola ranked ahead of him, even the guy that ended up going to Texas A&M. So whose name I forget right now. I can't remember if I forget that guy after talking about him for a whole year. But it's interesting. But now he's on campus, and now that he competed with everybody else in the All-Star games, everyone's like, "Oh, Vasusi's the best guy." And now he's on OU campus, and everything's going and heading in that direction. And I've not been, I've checked the internet a little bit, but I've not been hearing any buzz on the other guys, really, not to the degree that Vasusi's getting national attention. That information's being put out nationally. So maybe we're just going to see a natural, a better. Maybe we'll see that for the first little while that man, OU, why are these guys all 3-stars? And sometimes even today, I always felt like Brent's offers were always high caliber. Like, okay, I don't understand why that guy's a 3-star. I don't understand why Danny Okoye is a 3-star for the longest stretch. I don't understand why James Nesta is a 3-star. So it's going to be interesting to see just how do OU fans react to being, the 12th ranked recruiting class in the SEC, or outside the top 25 from the different recruiting services. How are they going to react? How are they going to react to that? And does that even matter? Does it really even matter?
I think that there's two things that would cure that, right? That help that. One, if you're winning, right? One, if you're winning,
right.
/ making the playoffs, right? Consistently at a consistent chip. Second thing is kind of for more of the hardcore recruiting fans that kind of know about that right now. You're still looking at you look at recruiting just kind of as a whole, kind of that composite. You're wanting to look more in depth at the numbers and see what is the average grade, right, of these players across the board. Because trust me, I mean, hell, Miami and a couple of these places are getting top 10 classes, but we never know who the hell their wide receivers are year to year. You get what I'm saying? They've had one in the past, 3 or 4 years that we've all been like, hey, that kid, Restrepo, but Restrepo was under recruited, all the rest of those different things. He's a guy who makes some money in the league, a lot of that stuff. But you just have to, and I'm not just talking about Restrepo. They've had 2. I'll give them 2. But regardless, though, you see some of these guys have these top 10 classes, these top classes, and they're still not able to go out there and do anything with it because at the end of the day, it's all about development. So I think that people will be thoroughly pleased. But it really depends because, like I said, we have the perfect staff for it. Venables and company have to go handle business this year. Get us a 9 wins, 10 wins. I think a lot of people would take 8 wins because that would be a huge improvement. But if you can get to that 9 to 10 wins where you're pushing that with this schedule right here, you're in business to really change a lot of the narrative as far as, hey, because people look, Nagy is, like Jason said, Nagy's working now. It's not just Nagy's coming in here. He was hired. No, Nagy's working now. And I think after the spring combine and all the kids get to go out there on the field and talk to the players and everybody gets the autograph and gets pictures and stuff like that, it's going to get really grimy around there because there's going to be a lot of honest conversations about this roster. So I think that people need to understand the Nagy era has started, it's began, and it's underway, and you will start seeing some things happen in the portal. And you may see 1 or 2 guys that you were like, I didn't see that guy actually portaling out. But,
I'm going to ask you this, though. Don't you think that it's probably is going to be a situation that when they start realizing that, okay, yeah, Nagy likes this guy, and no, we haven't seen him, but we should probably bump up his ranking, just in view of the fact that this guy knows what the hell he's looking at.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, Chris Mason knows this for sure. 2-star gets a 3-star gets a OU. OU offer. What, Kamari Moore? He was he wasn't even ranked. He bumped all the way up to like 3 stars. I mean, it's just crazy. Like these ranking sites, some of these sites, they just they kind of go off of that. If the guy's getting recruited by a couple of the bigger schools, especially some of the blue blood schools, and all of a sudden he takes a rise, he takes a jump, all the rest of those different things. I think you can see that right now with the Bentley kid and Jaden O'Neal. You know, who's hot right now? It's the Bentley kid. Everybody wants him, this and that. So he's soaring up past everybody, and everybody that they were in love with is kind of falling.
That's a good segue.
So do you take any sort of solace or confidence in that? It looks like the guy that we just hired from the athletes group was heavily involved in OU's portal evaluations, right? The guy they just hired, the new assistant GM, that's what he was doing heavily for the Rosenberg athletes group, right? That group heavily managed OU's portal activity in December. Do you take any solace or confidence from the first that portal group that's now on campus, where it looks like for the most part that OU's, you know, that portal group looks as solid or better than the portal groups previously? And that's obviously we haven't had, no one's seen the field yet, no one's played a game yet, but it looks to be that OU, you know, has, you know, it looks like a stronger group, right? I'm projecting Gibson, Sategna, Simmons as probably three starters, or, you know, de facto starters on the offensive side of the ball. And there's a good chance that Daniels and MJJ are going to be significant contributors on the defensive side of the ball. And the other wide receivers, it looks like for the most part, there just doesn't look like a lot of misses from the portal group that they brought in. So do you think that gives us does that give you any confidence in the Nagy process, knowing that Nagy just hired a guy from athletes group, and that guy came in and he did this, and now you've got Nagy and this guy working together to build a roster? Because to me, the portal group looks pretty solid, other than the two tight end guys. I know you tried to get better tight end players and just missed out on them. They had money for them. They missed out on them. Other than the tight end group, I take a look at the portal. I see 5 or 6 starters out of the portal group we brought in.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think you see either starters or they're getting significant time. They're getting a lot of packages and different things for them. So I think they're built into the offense / defense as well. Yeah. Well, I mean, weren't those guys already here before? You know, the Nagy and I guess the other guy.
No, the guy that got hired, that they just hired, whose name escapes me. He was part of the Rosenberg the athlete group that Rosenberg runs, and that really, based upon the information I have from my sources, that really ran OU's portal operations in December for the most part. Like, they ID'd Simmons as the offensive tackle that they could afford, and he was the best one to bring in. So they didn't waste time on money on the Rice guy who went to Ohio State.
Yeah.
And like the UNLV guy who went to Oregon, who were both pricing themselves out of OU's range. That, you know, they were doing the pricing evaluation. Same thing at wide receiver, right? OU skipped the Georgia Tech wide receiver, who I think ended up at Ole Miss. They identified.
Did you go to Auburn?
Was it Auburn? Yeah, I don't, maybe, but they're just saying that guy, he seems to have implemented that process and helped OU through their portal process last year, right? And in December, and that led to OU getting, you know, even Marvin Jones Jr. and Kendall Daniels seem to be intelligent number plays, right? Like, okay, we can get a lot out of these guys. We're spending low, and they have high ceilings, right? That Daniels, there's a world in which Marvin Jones Jr. has a massive year, and Daniels ends up as in some sort of 3 linebacker scheme, looking like an NFL prospect, right? That's not like a fantasy land projection, right?
Kendall Daniels measurables are ridiculous. Hell yes.
Right. Same thing with Marvin Jones. You know, he looks better. Everyone's saying that, you know, all this rumor of him not having a high motor, that's just gone. That, you know, playing for Chavis has re-energized him and all that. So I'm just saying that I'm taking a little early confidence in this Nagy approach based upon what I think is a better portal group other than tight end where I just don't think any luck was being found.
Well, I mean,
I think the wide receiver group. I like Josiah Martin is basically a freshman. You basically picked up you undersigned it, your high school guys, and you picked up a freshman. He's basically going to be a freshman, and then you added, Lewis is a senior, so it's if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. He's gone in a year. You can still sign a big high school class of wide receivers in 26. So I just think I take a little confidence from that maybe this is all going to work. That this new scheme,
I think
this new process, because it's definitely OU's definitely projecting ahead, right? Nagy's working with a salary cap where schools like A&M are just like, just spend more money, and Nagy's obviously like, no. If I think this high school running back is worth, and I'm just going to throw a number out. I don't know if it's right. If I think that high school running back is worth $200,000, we're not spending $400,000 on him, right?
Sure.
Now,
there's a hierarchy in what you pay. You know what I mean? Who's the guy?
But if this elite left tackle wants $1 million and we're paying $800,000, but I think he's this good, then we're going to negotiate to $9 million and try and try and work the deal. Maybe Bill's won the recruiting battle, right? And if we bridge the distance, we'll close it and save ourselves some salary cap money. Like that's what I think. I think that's sort of where the Fasusi thing, basically, that's what happened. And to cross over Aaliyah Chavez, that also happened. Jenny B won that recruiting battle, style of play, coaching style, team chemistry, all the things Chavez wanted. And then OU came up with enough money that it didn't, the other schools were higher than us, but she wanted to play for Jenny and was able to say, well, OU's so close, I want to go where I want to go.
Praise God.
I mean,
shout out to Jenny B.
That's what happened.
Shout out to the girls going.
I mean, seriously, man, she won that. She won that damn recruiting battle head to head. Beat out South Carolina, LSU, Texas, everybody. She won that recruiting style because kids like playing for her. The transfers are starting to get that message out. Verhulst and Beers are like, telling kids they love playing for her. They like her style of game.
Way to go, man. Way to go, Jenny.
Shout out
to
Stevie G right now. I'm sorry. I just had to say that. Shout out to Stevie G. And
somebody that finally agreed with K. Chris.
But it's just, I think we're going to see, it makes me wonder if because this is a pretty big gamble model-wise, right? That OU's jumped into this without a salary cap really being in place yet and managing to a cap to a certain point, showing financial restraint where schools like Ole Miss and A&M, just to use those two, kicking, Florida to a degree. I'm not sure what Ohio State's doing. Miami's obviously spending money like a drunken sailor at Fleet Week, continuing to try and help the worst game day coach in America. But OU's definitely showing financial restraint right now before it's really being applied to anybody else. Sure. And I'm just wondering, it could be a disaster, right? But early signs seem like it seems like it's working. But
well, here's what you still got the House settlement coming up. So once that happens, is when this restraint's going to have to be for everybody else anyway. The NIL is going to change things, right? It's having the revenue share at $20.5 million. That's the cost to get in the dance, right? It's your cover charge.
Right.
NIL is the cream on top of that.
Guys, I've been trying to jump in here to say I'm going to do it. Okay, I've talked about it a little bit on this podcast. Chris Mason, I may send some stuff to you over the weekend. I'm going to tell you guys next Wednesday or next Thursday, whenever we do the pod the next time, I'm going to tell you how to fix NIL. I'm going to do it. I've been thinking about this for a while. I'm going to show.
Well, you are a legal mind, so
I'm going to tell you exactly how to do it. And I will be the first to admit, talking to my uncle about it, there's some holes in this. So I am willing to collab and take criticism, but I think I have the blueprint, at least the skeletons of that blueprint, to basically put together something that would that could fix NIL as far as we know it.
What
From
did you
high
say?
school all the way through college, I think we could fix NIL and get it to
Hey,
where
can
it's
so,
better.
Edro, can you throw OU revenge tourist comment up just so we can talk about it?
Let me see.
I knew that was coming. Yeah.
Okay, this is like a
You got here
straw
late,
man
bro.
argument. Yeah, this is a straw man argument, right? Jenny's money has nothing to do with the money for football. She's not taking money from football. Jenny's got boosters excited about her program, giving her money for NIL to land the number one player in the nation. And Nike and the Jordan brand also didn't exactly hurt on this. Okay. But this isn't there isn't a finite pool of OU sports donor money and it all has to go to football, right? Porter's going to get more money if he stays because he got the team in the tourney and he coached better, right? Skip Johnson's getting more NIL money. Why? Because his baseball team went to a championship game 2-3 years ago and is playing much better and is playing very well in the SEC. Gasso obviously gets NIL money because all she does is win championships, right?
She's got 4 titles in a row.
She's she's better than Nick Saban in softball. So I know some people want to say, well, why are we spending money on a women's basketball player? It's not the same money. It's not. This isn't a pie, and people are stealing from the football pie. This is above and beyond what's going on with football. And Jenny has worked very hard to get donors supporting her program. It's not money that's coming away from football. It's not like all of a sudden Jenny called up Brent Venables and said, "You have to let Michael Fasusi go because I just got a basketball. I got a basketball recruit." That's not the way. This isn't the way this works. Jenny has worked hard, gotten NIL money,
separated out, man. Come on now.
It is not this. She's not stealing.
Everybody's got a budget.
Credit card.
Everybody's got a budget. It doesn't change like that.
Yeah, I mean, she's not stealing Brent Venables' credit card and going on a shopping spree. She got the money because her program is doing really well and is a top 10 program in the nation.
Yeah, she's done a great job.
So so it's not. It's one thing can exist as Chris is always fond of saying. We could have great NIL for women's basketball, and still go out and get
2 things can be
a
true.
5
Yes.
and go out and get a 5-star defensive end in football. It doesn't. One doesn't mean the other. It does. There's no connection between the two.
That guy. But all right. Well, I gotta bounce, but I'll be interested to punch holes in your NIL plan next week.
All right, people. With that being said, we've been on here for about 1 hour and 8 minutes. So next week we'll talk about that. We'll bring you guys some more. As far as we know, I think next week maybe we have some more about the Bentley and O'Neal thing, and we'll have some more. But guys, hey, a lot of great content out there, a lot of great OU creators. We know a lot of them, so definitely go check those out as well. But like, subscribe, do all those different things, share these videos with everybody. OU Intel right here. You got Chris with a K with the Horns Down podcast. You got Jason with the Hall of Fame College Football podcast with Coach.
Hey, and before you guys run off, just 1 second. Are we not going to bring up the conversation about Bedlam in the springtime?
All right.
Listen, I'm just saying, if we're not, I'm pretty disappointed in both of you. Gotta say
that Gundy would basically promise something.
He's a jackass. There's no ways around. Yeah.
That basically
People that are
Gundy's
negative
doing
and
the
voicing their
classic.
opinion are the same ones that can't pay their own bills.
That Gundy basically is. First off, props to Dion for pushing the issue, right?
Good Lord, yeah.
This whole spring scrimmage thing makes too much sense, right? And and Syracuse and Colorado want to do it, make too much sense, right? Makes too much sense. So all props to them, all props to Dion for suggesting it. But then Gundy saying, well, we should play Bedlam, even though he knows
that that there's no chance in hell of pulling this off. Anyone actually have to follow through on this. It's just typical. It's typical Gundy, and then the media fawns all over him. Oh, he's so wise and smart. Man, I'm just so effing sick of that crap.
$25 a head. Like, bro, if you broke, just tell us. It's giving broke, Gundy. You're broke. Brokies. Bro.
People that are negative and voicing their opinion are the same ones that can't pay their own bills.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I'm just saying, man.
Oh, it just kills me.
If I was,
I mean, OU. I mean, the best idea was, OU should go to, play SMU or TCU in Dallas and make it a big recruiting weekend for us. Screw giving the Aggies any more help.
Said in there that they wouldn't want to go live. We'd just be thudding up. Like that's gonna ever fucking happen? Are you kidding? Take away the Bedlam game, so all of a sudden now we're not gonna hit each other. Get out of here, bro.
And I'll be honest with you guys. OSU is in flux right now, losing the president, everything that's going on with that story right now. If you guys aren't following that, you may want to follow that just to see what's happening. Yeah. It's a lot of shady stuff that's going on around OSU as far at that level, at that higher level. And Gundy is holding on to that job by a pinky. So, I mean, at the end of the day, there's a lot more stuff that OSU needs to be worried about. NIL is definitely one of those, because as far as I'm concerned, and I think as far as anybody else is concerned, and this is really not even a knock on OSU, but OSU is far behind in the NIL game. They need the revenue sharing, all the rest of those different things. That stuff needs to come into effect now to help some of these schools. And don't get me wrong, OSU has money, but not like that. This NIL thing is brand spanking new. So, for me, it's damn near to the point where Gundy is going to go out there and get him a D3 wide receiver or somebody like that and get production from those kids. But to keep an Ollie Gordon on campus is probably going to take a little bit more than what it usually would, You get what I'm saying? So it
would have been my last comment. It would have been sweet if we needed a running back, if we could have just taken Ollie Gordon from OSU.
And, there was some
that would have been
trash. It was trash last year, and he ran like a 4.6 at the damn combine.
Yeah,
he would have been better. All right, guys, I'm going to bounce. Thanks, man.
All right, everybody, we out.